Welcome, everyone. Steve Anderson here from the Age Diversity Forum. This is the third session that we're running as part of International Age Diversity Day that's coming up on the 24th of September. I'm really glad to be joined by one of our non-exec team, Tony Williams. Hi, Tony. Thank you very much for taking time out to do this. The theme of these sessions so far has been certainly the international landscape and how different geographies are recognizing and dealing with age challenges in the workplace. So we thought it'd be really good to throw open quite a large sort of question or a title of the global dynamics of the age agenda. And I know, Tony, this is something that you show great thought leadership on in terms of some articles that you've done for us, and I know comes up in conversation a lot. So if I may, as this session is going to be quite free form, I think, less structured, maybe some of our others, just because I know, and I tell this to the audience, that I know when we get talking, it can go off on different tangents, but I think generally, there's some really important metrics that we look at and look through to address some of the global challenges, but also some of the global opportunities. So, Tony, over to you to kick this off, if I may.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. That's very kind, and thank you for the very kind introduction. I guess the key word, for this really is international, because I think that's really about where we want to be thinking about this. This is not specific to the UK. It's not specific to Europe. It's not specific to any particular part of the world. What we're going to talk about pretty much applies across the piece. There may be one or two exceptions, but by and large, this is happening everywhere. And maybe it's worth perhaps just touching on some of those, big changes that we know, and these aren't up. We know these things are coming through. I guess the one that we've probably played to, over and over again, and we don't need to dwell on, is us baby boomers coming through as a chunk of more mature workers working our way through the workplace, as it were. But there's much more to it than that. I know, we are going to have this bubble, or we have the bubble of more mature workers coming through in pretty much all developed economies. But there are other things that go beyond that, and are already challenges, for a lot of nations. I mean, perhaps the first one to pick up on is, whether we like it or not, but it's a declining birth rate. You've only got to look to, I think the lowest in the world at the moment is South Korea. And I think the generally accepted replacement rate for economies of birth rate, I think it's either 2.1 or 2.2 children. And South Korea, I think, is down to 0.68 now, something like that, which is quite scary. And we know that, Japan's population is shrinking because of their low birth rates. So, not only do we have this bubble of us, our baby boomers coming through, but looking further out, we're probably going to have a lot fewer younger people coming through.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, Tony, to be honest, because it's so fundamental to certainly what's going on in the workplace. And I think it becomes, businesses, the economy, if we look at it from the pure commercial side of things, probably really has to wake up to this idea, or not. It's not an idea, as you say. These things are happening now. They're not just big questions to answer in time. We can wait for this. This is stuff that's happening now. And as you say, the flip, if you like, from the numbers of aging people and the birth rates. I think it was about 2 months ago in the UK where the older generations, if like, eclipsed the new birth rates, eclipsed the new birth rates. So it's a really fundamental change. And in the consensus, UK consensus of 2021, we saw the population bulge graph shifting upwards. So many more people living longer. And with the economy, the global economies as they are, in terms of everyone looking for better welfare, public services, businesses improving generally, how are we going to pay for things, and how are business going to thrive rather than just survive? And how can we help them make good business decisions by thinking through the age lens? And what I mean by that is um, many organizations have looked to the younger end of the market for various reasons, whether that's how education has changed as well over recent times. Many more younger people leaving education with degrees and different expectations there. Um, and businesses have looked at just a pure cost element. If we hire younger, does that mean hiring more cheaply, for example? And maybe some businesses, some sectors, some industries have made, let's call it, poor decisions in letting good experience, good talent, good knowledge leave the organization, but they haven't really had a good succession plan. They're not really replenishing those skills and that knowledge and that experience. And there's a bit of a hiatus in skills. There's a skills gap. Again, one of these very fundamental big questions that is going on in all developed countries. The question of what academia is producing to what industry needs in terms of meeting the demands of business. I'm jumping around a little bit, but this is all around the subject of how can we ensure that we're getting the best out of all these generations. You talked about the baby boomers. As soon as we start as soon as we start putting labels like that, stereotypes, come into our minds about what baby boomers are. Some people think, they're too expensive, they're off ill, you know, they're a different challenge than a younger person. And just one thing before I ask you to come back in, Tony.
Lots of assumptions that are not true. Lots of assumptions. Maybe I mean this is going to take. It is going to take some really big shifts in thinking, I think, in terms of how we tackle this, because I think and I include myself in this. For many of us, we've grown up at what I would call the back end of the industrial age, and with the industrial age comes a whole set of assumptions about what work is, how it works, who does it, where you do it. And we know that a lot of those things are starting to move, in terms of just like home, working from home. I mean, not everybody can do that, but that's been a massive shift. So if you like, there's a thing called, well, this is getting a bit academic, they're called Kondratiev cycles. So you can look that up. It's Russian. And it's about these big shifts in what drives economies, and how you really think about the assets and resources you have to make those economies work. And I don't think we've got that mindset shift yet in terms of what will drive economies of the future will be what's the word? I guess it's soft skills and intellectual skills will drive a lot of that. And that is not age dependent. I think that's the thing we really need to get our heads around, is that different parts of our life cycle as human beings, we bring particular things to whatever you call this thing, the workplace. So in the Industrial Revolution, if you like, once we get to a certain age, our part is done and we can contribute no more. You're done. The world has changed and is changing to not just because of our better health and longevity, but the needs of the economies are shifting to things that the likes of us can actually do and do extremely well. So if you're not just a business, but if you're a government, and you've got assets and resources that are available, how do you leverage them? How do you make more of it? And the age mentality just blooming well gets in the way. It gets in the way of that thinking. And we're not utilizing and leveraging those assets. And that means economies
You're
will
absolutely
suffer.
You're absolutely right, Tony. And I was just going to say that everything you're talking about as well uh, is echoed in all geographies. I would talk to the audience now and just say, please take a look at one of our sessions that we did with a fantastic organisation down in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and just listen to the common challenges that they're facing there. Everything Tony's talking about here, um, we're hearing the same thing in these different locations. But that's one of the opportunities, I think, for some of these big questions, is that because it's such a common challenge, surely we should be able to grasp the question and begin to not just go around in circles in terms of trying to find, but collectively, can we come up with solutions? Because again, uh, through the age lens, everyone is of an age. It's unique in the diversity and inclusion discussion, where age does come into that. In terms of, again, in most developed countries, there is some legislation somewhere,
Yeah,
some policy somewhere from some government policymakers that says you can't be biased because of age. Age is the only part of that conversation that includes absolutely everybody. So if someone finds themselves in a particular minority group or protected group, they're of an age. Let's break down that barrier that may be perceived as age by actually use it as an opportunity to bring everyone into that conversation. And just at this point, I'll take the opportunity as well to point to one of our other sessions, which is a group of young people talking about the age challenges. And again, within that conversation, a lot of the discussion around age, people think it's for the reserve of older people, but actually other generations are feeling it too, the same
yes,
issues and the same challenges. Again,
yeah,
let's grasp that opportunity and let's recognize it and do something about it. I think something off air we were talking about, Tony, was we just these are big ticket questions that are affecting the global economy, that are affecting global population change, that we know the challenges are very similar, if not exactly the same in all continents. Should we just stand by and just like let these questions drift? I mean, what
no,
do you suggest, Tony?
no, no. We can't sit by and do nothing. I don't think there's any option, because we will all suffer one way or another if we sit by and do nothing. Is there a single silver bullet solution for it? I don't think so. Um, I guess and this is a hackneyed phrase, but for me, we're going to need to see some real examples of, I'd call it rebellious leadership, going against the grain, and whether that's in big
Yeah,
businesses or whether it's in government, it's going to need some rebellious leadership to go, the status quo will not serve us well. So these things need to change. And it will take it'll take some, I suppose, some really brave, good, strong leaders to go, we can do this differently.
yeah, and you know what, Tony, that is spot on, and we need a collaboration at that level as well. We need policymakers not just to give sound bites. We need substance. We need them to recognise these changes, and that actually, for the benefit of the economy, that will help welfare state, that will help public service, they need to have a really broad vision of all the age groups, all the generations, and
Yeah,
understand the values and contribution that they can bring. On the other side of that equation, we need business to be absolutely considerate of all the generations. Stop making poor decisions, particularly on older people, I would say, in terms of losing knowledge and experience. And by the way, that many of the older community now will want to continue to work, but B, because of the change in economies, will need to work. So
Yeah.
make use of that benefit that is available to you rather than ignoring it. So I think there's some really fundamental good practice that we can help. And this is, if I may, quick selling point, this is what the Age Diversity Forum is all about.
Yeah.
It's a forum for that conversation. It's certainly a big part of our work is driving those organizations to raising the awareness within their organizations of how they can achieve much improved well-being within their organization in terms of collaboration and partnering, but also there's a business case for this. So it goes beyond the moral compass of doing the right thing. It's good
Yeah.
for business. And if we can join that up with policymakers, because sometimes the policymakers say we need private investment in this, we need the private sector to take part. On the business side, they will say, well, what's in it for us?
Yeah.
So whether it's policymakers looking at some sort of at least understanding that, dare I say, even some incentivization at some level, whether that's through access to education, whether it's some sort of some sort of discount somewhere, in the big policy mix. I think we can join up some things. And the third thing we should do, and it's again a really strong piece of the work that we do in the Age Diversity Forum, is not forget the educational side of this. So
Yeah.
what is academia doing? We work really strongly, in particular with universities, in terms of what it is they're pumping out in terms of graduates that are coming out of academia into their careers, into the industrial world, and can we narrow that gap of skills, of understanding, so businesses can see it, they can get some direct benefit from that academic environment. So I think and as you say, Tony, it's not one silver bullet, but if we can get all of those elements, at least thinking, actually, maybe through the age lens, we can begin to join some dots up here. We can join some
I think
dots and really start to at least mitigate, if not manage, these big questions.
some organizations are starting to they've talked about and done quite a lot in the what is now called the CX space, customer experience. And we're not here to judge how well they've done that. But in the HR space, there's a lot of conversation around EX, which is employee experience. And I think that's one of the domains that we perhaps could leverage more, because that's effectively looking at an employee as they go through their life cycle. Because whether we like it or not, we go through our life cycle. And at each sort of part of that life cycle through employment, our needs change. Yeah. You could be bringing up a family. You could be looking after elderly parents. You may have personal health issues. Yeah. And we put in the policies that are appropriate to support that, whether it's paternity leave, maternity leave, whatever it might be. So we need to start extending that and thinking about not, right from the beginning of your career, right through to basically whenever you want to finish it. It could be when you're 60, 65, 70, it could be 80. If you still have the skills and the capability, then why shouldn't you still be there?
Yeah, exactly. And the support and resources from your organization that help you be the best that you can be. I know you've called this life stages as well, Tony, which I think is a great way to comment on someone's move, because everybody has the ability but everyone should have the opportunity to continue to develop themselves. Again, this is something unfortunate where we see, particularly in industry, is where we see training and development begin to wane as someone goes through their career. But everyone can learn at different stages, at different life stages. And if we continue to learn, and by the way, the other terminology if I throw into everything you just said there, Tony, I would put on the end of that is whatever your age.
Well, it's
Whatever your age,
yeah,
because
it's
whatever your age, we all want those. We need those flexibilities of working. We all have life balances that we want
absolutely
to have it in our life work balances,
yeah,
because we have different demands on ourselves, whether it's young families, as you say, whether it's caring, whatever it might be. None of that, none of that, and we've done research on this. And again, if any audience out there wants to hear from that, I'm gladly send you this. The research says that it's not one generation that feels that or wants that or demands that or needs that. All generations have different reasons for wanting maybe different flexibilities. The one thing they all want is opportunity to be the best that they can be.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. And I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I do like the very simple phrase. It's about stage, not age. Stage,
That's the one.
not age. Because and now with the way we live our lives and blended families, actually we can have repeat stages. We can have a second family. It's not necessarily in a particular order either. People
Yeah,
may be choosing to do things earlier in their career in terms of things like travel and do that earlier in their life cycle.
absolutely, absolutely.
And
By the way,
it's
Tony, just quickly before I forget that, it's too late now for this International Age Diversity Day, but for next International Age Diversity Day, the theme is going to be stage, not age.
okay,
That is that
cool.
we're going to hashtag it. We're going to have T-shirts. We're going to have mugs. That that really, in 3 words, culminates everything we've been talking about. Everything we've talked about, and if we can bring that conversation to policymakers, to industry sectors, uh, to the educators, I think we can start to make a difference and not sit. We can't sit by, as you were saying earlier, Tony. I don't think we can stress this message enough. I think if there's one thing we want to get from this session, is that message. These questions, the things that the reason we're asking these questions, these things are happening right now. These things
Yeah,
happening right now, and no one is addressing them in the way that we're suggesting. But if they do, we can really collate lots of great thinking ideas into activities and actions that actually make a difference on a global scale. I'm wondering we might even sort of round it off there, Tony, to be honest, because
can I just quickly, I'll give you just a very quick example that might actually bring this to life. Um, and it's of a gentleman who was a surgeon, a very I won't mention his name, but he'll know who he is, and a well-renowned surgeon who retired, as they do, because I think they have to retire at a particular age, which is another question, should they? But anyway, that's another question.
yes,
Um,
absolutely,
but has a new career as a professional artist, and a very, very, very good professional artist. Yeah. And he's well into his later years and still, okay, he's not working in the corporate world. He's chosen to do something else. But that's a classic, example. Think of himself as being, old at all. He's now
absolutely.
become a fabulous artist, and he is fabulous, absolutely brilliant.
And I'm really tempted to go into a whole other subject of transferable skills, but I'm not going to. I'm
That's
gonna
not going to be.
gonna hold that back. But what I would say is, first and foremost, Tony, thank you so much for your time today. I know for the audience, we probably moved around a little bit there in the conversation, but hopefully, and I'm sure what people will get from this is just how much opportunity at various different levels, if we think about the age agenda, how we can incorporate that into our policy, our behaviors that make good practice, that actually ultimately we want to achieve is cultural reform. And if
Yes.
that can be done, so where things become the norm, if
Yeah.
things become the norm where everybody, whatever their age, has equal opportunity, That's what we're looking for. Stage, not
Absolutely.
age. Look out for that next year, everyone. That's going to be our theme for International Age Diversity today. On that note, Tony, thank you so much. Really
No,
appreciate it.
thank you.
I would just,
Thank you.
sorry, I would just say to the audience, please, hope you enjoyed this session. There's another 2 sessions from the Age Diversity Forum that are running concurrently. So please go and check those out as well. And if you have any questions, there's going to be a link somewhere where this is shown where you can reach out to us. So, Tony, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you.